Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by The Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is a group of podcasters bringing you daily draft podcasts and is home to the only dynamic mock draft simulator which allows fans to mock draft against other fans. The Draft Professor Simulator features a first-round challenge, 5 unique one-round drafts. The Draft Professor Simulator features a second-round challenge, 10 unique 2-round drafts. All mock drafts are always picking against the fans and draft analysts which use the simulator. Every mock, every pick, every time. The Draft Professor also features ranked players functionality, where you can rank your favorite players at every position. Optionally, you can add tiers to your rankings to show what round you have the players graded in. The Draft Professor also features Draft a Team functionality, which allows users to snake draft a team of 22 players to demonstrate your my guys, compare player strengths, and discuss draft prospects in a way no other mock draft simulator can. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Well, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. It is our second podcast today. I'm joined by Durst, Jacob, Bill. Durst, how you doing?
Good. Ready to talk defensive tackles tonight.
Fantastic. And this is your second podcast with us, so welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, I think you've been with us here from the start, so this is way more than your second podcast.
Yeah, this is second podcast today.
Yeah.
Doubling down on some Wednesday night delight. You know, I've been here since the beginning, since Halloween when we first kicked off the Draft Professor, and it's been a fun time. Now I'm here, with Durst tonight and with my lovely mustached co-host Jacob, and we're going to talk some defensive tackles, but we're going to do it in a way that you probably haven't seen it done before. But before that, my mustached friend Jacob, how are you doing, sir?
Listen. I'm in Marysville, Ohio, right? Mm-hmm. And I walked into a card shop today. Card shop's been open 4 months, right? Anyway, right. I'm doing great. Walked into that card shop. I grabbed a couple packs of Pokemon cards, and I got the $500 Pikachu right here. See it?
Hey.
What's up? See that
Look
thing?
at that.
Right there. It's been a good day.
There you go. Yeah. So
there we go. So we got like Pokemon coming in on the Draft Professor, and we got Owen.
Exactly. You got his mustache. You've got my beard. Durst is coming in. He's got knowledge on some defensive tackles that you probably haven't heard of before. But before we dive into that, folks, make sure that if you're watching us here on the Draft Professor YouTube channel, you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the Draft Professor YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell. You'll get notified when we go live with all sorts of daily draft content. Sometimes you get to see us twice a day. If you tuned in earlier, I was with EJ and we were talking linebacker big boards. Make sure that you follow myself over on X at Sparks Scouting. I'm also a writer and analyst for the Right Way Sports Network, TWSN.net. You can find Jacob over on X as well at Roachism13, as well as he's a lovely writer and analyst for the OBR, the Orange and Brown Report, talking all things Cleveland Browns. And Durst, where can the people find your content?
So I'm just on Twitter /X at Durst NFL Draft.
Durst NFL Draft. Love it. And then, of course, you can follow our lovely moderator, Jim, NFL Draft Fanatic, No I in Fanatic, as well as here at the Draft Professor YouTube channel. And while we work on getting the graphics put together and ready to go, I think
just in time. That's right on cue.
Hey, look at that. See? Professional.
I didn't even have to talk about my Coke.
You'd never know this was...
Jacob, what kind of Coke do you have?
They released an orange cream flavor.
Coke
Zero.
Coke Zero. The only flavor that should go in Coke is lime. Like, oh, and I don't know what you drink, but like I can either drink regular Coke or lime and Coke, and like that's it. So, and by the way, if people have not met Owen before, if you're watching and you haven't met Owen before, you can catch Owen's podcast every Thursday at 9. And I believe tomorrow it's a 2-round mock draft.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, and you're in Western New York, so Western New York tends to have more Pepsi.
That's
I'm a Dr. Pepper man by design, but the place that I went to didn't have the Dr. Pepper that I wanted, so
Yep.
it's 5
So-
minutes.
So the list that you see in front of you is Durst's list on the right, Bill's list on the left, and then Jacob's list is in white text right down the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
And
forgot. I don't know who it was. I think it was me.
And this is the list of how they see the pass rushing ability of the defensive tackles. And this is actually a request from a regular viewer of the podcast. So, Durst, you have Walter Nolan as the best pass rushing defensive tackle in the class. Why is that?
Well, I do think that's kind of a pretty decently major projection. His PFF grades are kind of the opposite. They have him as a really good run defender, not as effective in the past, but I think going forward, some of it's just size and traits. I see him as a prototypical 3 technique, almost like a Warren Sapp type of player that can just really agility at the line of scrimmage, be able to get past people. At the collegiate level, he's kind of doing that more for against run defense, and he's penetrating the backfield, making some tackles for loss. Maybe not always getting the sack, but I think going forward in the NFL, that's ultimately the way I see him.
Owen, I'm glad that we could make you smile out at the University of Buffalo. So Jacob, who do you think is your best pass rushing interior lineman of the draft class?
Are you ready for me to throw this on just?
Oh, why not? It's Wednesday night.
We're 8 minutes in, Jacob. Just throw it on its ear at this point.
It's not really, though, because Bill has him too. It's Derek Harmon from Oregon for me. That dude is just – the thing about it is I don't even think you're quite all the way there with Derek Harmon as a pass rusher. I think he still has room to grow, and that's just the explosion off the line of scrimmage. I guess Durst has him over at 3 as well. Okay, see, I completely glossed over him, so I thought I was throwing everybody on their ear, but I didn't because I'm not original at all. But I just think that burst and just kind of the mentality he plays with, I really like Derek Harmon there as my top pass rusher. But I really like the going out on a limb a little bit with the Walter Nolan pick there, just because I think Walter Nolan's physical talent and upside as a pass rusher is pretty good. I think there's a high ceiling for Walter Nolan as a pass rusher. And it's I think a lot of this class, that's what you're kind of banking on, is some of these guys on their pass rushing upside on a lot of them. And I think Walter Nolan's as high as just about anybody on that side of things.
Yeah. And Bill, you want to explain the heart attack that you gave Owen?
Yeah, so Aeneas Peebles is my best pass rushing defensive tackle, not my best number 1 overall defensive tackle. Because the big problem with Peebles is his size. He's 6'1", 290, but you never know it because he's got tree trunks for legs and he's got a well-built center. But this is a guy that he plays like his hair is on fire in a defensive line, and his hand techniques and his explosion and burst off the line. He looks like an NFL veteran out there. He is your defensive coordinator's favorite defensive lineman. This is a guy that you can put in the middle of the defense, and he's not necessarily going to push the pocket. Strength is not his forte. It's explosiveness. It's athleticism. It's speed. It's also being violent and physical. Even though he doesn't have the strength, he is willing to hit someone and make them feel it. Obviously, he has somewhat of a limited ceiling being sub 300 pounds. And at 6'1", you kind of wonder, is his frame going to be maxed out? But if I had to pick a pass rushing defensive tackle today that I would stick with, it's Aeneas Peebles, because you look at it, only 3 sacks, yes, but 31 hurries. That is a thing. If you're hurrying the quarterback that much and pushing the quarterback and making him feel uncomfortable, that sometimes is more effective than a sack, because a sack, obviously it's a loss of yards, but a hurry can lead to an interception. A hurry can lead to an incompletion. A hurry can be the difference between 1st and 10 and 4th and 10. So he's a little bit underrated because of that size, but this is a guy that, I have him as my top pass rusher, but he's probably going to be a day 3 guy because of his size. But he's the best pass rusher. And then, like Jacob and Durst talked about, Derek Harmon's number 2, and Derek Harmon's still got room to grow. Derek Harmon reminds me a lot of Rashawn Gary when he was coming out of Michigan. That same style where he still had room to grow as a defensive lineman and as a pass rusher. The sky's going to be the limit for the Oregon Star.
And Bill, you want to highlight Riley Mills there for a second, because you have him pretty high too.
Absolutely. So Riley Mills from Notre Dame, he was very productive during his time at Notre Dame. So typically with pass rush defensive tackle, you want to see one of 2 things. You either want to see that given production, or you want to see something along those lines of, the traits that you see. And for Riley Mills, 8 sacks, yes, he's an older prospect. He's going to be a 24-year-old rookie when we get him to the NFL. But he's got an impressive upper body strength. This is a guy, he's not skipping workouts, folks. He's pushing people around. He's pushing through people and getting to the quarterback. He can easily win with a bull rush. He is the guy that you'll see him on clips, pick up a guard, push him back into his quarterback's lap, and make life hell on earth for him. He is the Cameron Hayward type of guy when you're talking defensive tackle. That same big body defensive tackle that can pick somebody up, move them around, and get to the quarterback with ease. Obviously, the injury concerns, where is he at in his recovery? What's that going to look like post-injury? But outside of Peebles and Harmon, I think Riley Mills, while Peebles and Harmon are more athletic and explosive, Riley Mills is a strong pass rusher. He's built like a bull in a china shop style of pass rusher.
Can I ask you something about Peebles? Did Peebles go to the Senior Bowl? I can't remember.
I believe he was there. Yes.
Yes.
So, in my notes, and this is preseason notes, I wrote down that some sources had him as 5'11", 290, and that kind of concerned me to that size, and so I actually had him 10th on the pass rush list because I like him as a pass rusher too in the collegiate level. I wasn't too sure if 5'11" might get us into the undrafted free agent range. And
right, so he was at the Senior Bowl and he measured out at 6 foot and 3/8, so 6 foot and a half. 289 though, so he was in the 289 290 range, probably just a crustable off of 290. Is where he's at. So I expect him to probably add on a little bit of weight. But yeah, that was one of my concerns too, because a 5'11" defensive tackle you're giving up a lot of leverage. But at 6 foot, I feel a little bit more comfortable knowing where his game is at currently.
Yeah, there's a precedent for 6 foot, not a lot of precedent for 5'11".
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Durst, your number 2 player for pass rush is Mason Graham. So what do you like about Mason Graham that you have him as the second best pass rusher in the draft class from the inside?
Yeah, I mean, so I try not to repeat too many times, but 2 people I repeated was one of the people I repeated was Mason Graham. So, I think he's the best defensive tackle, or at least the highest floor. He's got a lot more moves, and he just showed up on Michigan campus just ready to go. The first year, freshman All-American, he looked every bit as good as Mozzie Smith. The second year, he looked every bit as good as Chris Jenkins. So, people that were elder, teammates, got maybe a little bit more snap count, but he was right in there as like the 3rd defensive tackle freshman sophomore year, and as a junior year, he just showing he might even have some Ndamukong Suh potential in terms of being a wrecking ball. Now I think his floor might be more like a Kenny Clark. So if he never really gets to the point of being a a consistent pass rusher. I still think he'll be serviceable on a Kenny Clark level, but I think that's about his floor. I think he's got a lot more potential. He's certainly one of the few on our list of 20 people here that are a true junior. Most of them are 5th year, 6th year seniors, and he just breakout age from the very beginning.
Okay, and Jacob, who is the next best pass rushing interior lineman that hasn't been mentioned to you?
Yeah, I did want to say one thing. I love that you have Mason Graham there because I project his pass rush upside a lot, very, very high as well. I just love his get off. So for me, and it's about to come up, but like, God, I love TJ Sanders, man. Like, oh my goodness. And a lot of that's the Cleveland Browns fan in me. That's a Jim Schwartz defensive tackle if I've ever seen one before. And I just love TJ Sanders. Like he wants you to test him, right? Like he wants to hand fight with you. He wants to get in your face, and he's got I think he has a great blend of both speed and power. I think he can transition between the two. I still think he could use some refinement with his hands. I think his hands are violent. I think they're powerful, but I do think sometimes he doesn't get them up quite as quick as I would like him to. And sometimes a little bit slow into some of the moves that he does, which is hilarious to me because I think he's really good with his hands already, but I think there's more room for growth, which is, like I said, it's kind of hilarious in my opinion that that's kind of where he sits. But I just think TJ Sanders has got if you're like, hey, show me a guy that embodies a defensive tackle mindset, I think that's TJ Sanders, man. That dude just wants to get in your face and he wants to outwork you. And his motor just doesn't stop. I really love TJ Sanders in the interior.
Okay, and Bill, the next player on your list is Darius Alexander from Toledo. So tell us what you like about Darius Alexander's pass rushing prowess.
Yeah, so Darius Alexander is a name that's probably gotten a lot more steam since his showing at the Senior Bowl, and a few people that I talked with that were down in Mobile described him as a quote-unquote problem on the interior, and that's putting it politely. This is a guy 6'3", 5/8 inches, 305 pounds is what he measured out at. He has a really good bend coming off of that ball. He can get into a offensive lineman's chest with ease, push them back in the pocket. He also has slide and swim ability. This is a guy, not only can he push into people, he can slide underneath, get skinny in a hurry, and then get back big very quick. Definitely has some room to grow, especially because his pad level does drift a little bit higher than you'd like. So now he's giving up leverage in that pass rush game. But when you couple his strength with the moves that he's currently got in his toolbox, he's probably the best of the next list from these guys. And I think Darius Alexander is going to start to open even a lot more eyes than he did down in Mobile, because this is a guy that is, if we didn't have Peebles and Harmon, he's the top 3 pass rushing defensive tackle in this class. And it's lost a little bit because he's from a smaller school in Toledo. But again, and I've talked about it on this channel several times on the scouting reports, we don't scout the helmet, we scout the player. And if you have the talent, they will find you. Well, Darius Alexander has the pass rushing talent, and people, it's time to find him because he's going to be a problem at the next level.
He's got some tape. It's really funny because I'd seen a little bit of him from, my time. I'm in deep in MAC country myself. And
right.
I had seen some of them. I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty good player. But I turned on some tape yesterday, actually, because I wanted to touch up on some of his. There's some tape where you're just like, he's the best player on the field at defensive tackle, and it's not close. There's right. If you're going to play at a MAC school or a D2 school or, North Dakota, wherever you're going to play at a smaller school like that, you better dominate. And that's straight what he did, especially this year. He has some problem tape.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a throwback. Yeah. And the comp for him that I've got, Eddie Goldman, the former Seminole, former Chicago Bear, the same thing that Eddie Goldman used to do the NFC North offensive line, Darius Alexander is going to do at the next level.
Yeah, I think so.
First, the next 2 that you have is Omar Norman Lott and Deontay Walker. And I know that Owen likes Omar Norman Lott a lot. I remember when Owen did that scouting report really early on in the fall. But what do you like about Omar Norman Lott as a pass rusher, Durst?
He's very explosive at the line of scrimmage. First step, very explosive. Now he plays in a rotation. He's considered basically a backup or a sub, package type player. I think he came from Arizona State, fifth year senior, but transferred to Tennessee, and he was just part of a phenomenal Tennessee defensive line. Now, the one concern I have is, he's kept fresh. He plays like 17 snaps a game, I think, is on average, and so he's kept fresh. But he goes all out on those 17 snaps. So he can get after the quarterback. He can penetrate the backfield really quickly. He's got burst get off. So I'm excited about his potential because in NFL he's not going to be playing 60 snaps either. So we want somebody like that can play on sub packages, and I don't think he is going to be a starter, but he's going to play a significant amount of snaps in the NFL.
And then the next player you have for pass rush is Deone Walker from Kentucky. So what do you like about his pass rush ability?
So he was actually my number one defensive tackle over the summer, and there was a little bit of a projection. I saw kind of a Vita Vea type of athlete, Jordan Davis type of athlete, and I would say his junior year is a little disappointing. But I want to shout out Clay Fink. He had actually texted me basically retext or Twittered me or whatever, something he did back in 2023. But this is Deone Walker's true freshman season. Minimum 300 snaps. These are all PFF grades. Defensive grade, he was second. Run defensive grade, he was third. Pass rush grade, first. Pressures, first. Sacks, tied for first. Batted passes, tied for first. Tackles first. Stops first. Forced fumbles first. And pass rush win percentage second among all true freshman defensive tackles a few years ago. Now he's just coming off his junior season. So his sophomore season was good, but maybe not, top 2, top 3. His junior season, a little bit of a disappointment. Now, why was it a disappointment? I mean, I think the more film we got, the more we realized that he, stands up at the line of scrimmage a lot. He's got high pad level. His 6'7", it may sound great, but it doesn't always work when it comes to leverage. He's kind of thin-legged at the, he's got a big 350-pound body, but kind of thin legs. So I'm a little bit concerned about how this is going to work against the run. I still think he flashes against the pass some. He can get his hands up at the line of scrimmage. He can bat a few balls. He's got some swim moves. He's able to penetrate a little bit more than what you think a 340, maybe 350-pound guy can do.
Okay. And Jacob, is there a interior pass rusher that we haven't mentioned that you think should be mentioned?
It's Kenneth Grant, right? Like he kind of falls into the shadow of his teammate Mason Graham, which is understandable because Mason Graham is, I think it's something you said earlier, Durst, about Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham's the safest pick in this draft. And I think as a result, people are kind of not seeing Kenneth Grant as much. And that the fact of the matter is you shouldn't be that big moving like that. Like I don't understand how Kenneth Grant moves the way he moves. That is a dude. I think he's listed at 345. Is that right, Bill?
I believe he's at 345. Let me double check that and make sure. Yeah, 339 is what I've got him at. So between 340 and 345.
And you're like, oh, he's in the backfield already. And he's a guy that maybe needs a little bit of fine tuning and seasoning when it comes to the pass rush moves and some of the repertoire. I think he just needs to kind of fine tune some things. He's just needs a little bit of seasoning, as I like to call it. And I think that it's funny because I never thought I would put 2 defensive tackles from the same school in the top 10 of my overall prospects, but I did. There are 2 defensive tackles in my top 10, and Kenneth Grant's one of them, and I think his upside is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I have him at 4 and 15 on my big board right now, if I remember right.
Yeah, I'm a little lower, but I'm at 35 just because there's other talents that have passed him, not necessarily as defensive tackle, but he's my 4th defensive tackle on my list. My comp for him, it's a little bit of a throwback remember Dontari Poe that ended up at Kansas City at pick 11 overall?
Yeah.
You see a lot of the same things he did at Memphis and Kenneth Grant's tape. And like you said, Jacob, we normally don't see two defensive tackles side by side like that. And Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant show out the way they did. Kenneth Grant, I think, is going to be a problem because also he's only 21 years old.
Yeah.
He turns 22 in the middle of his rookie season. He's still got at least 2 more years of growth and development. And this is what he is right now.
So, Durst, do you want to quickly cover Shamar Turner, Joshua Farmer, and Howard Cross? Because you have them on your list. So tell us what you like about their pass rushing ability.
So tell you what, real quick, I just double checked, and actually I had Dontari Poe as my comp for Kenneth Grant too. I just tweeted that out like 2 days ago or so. I was like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
Sorry. So which one were we doing first again?
Shamar Turner, Joshua Farmer, and Howard Cross. You're 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah. So when we start off with Turner. So Turner, Turner actually started over Shamar Stewart last year. 2 years ago. So when they were all at Texas A&M, Shamar Stewart was basically a rotational backup behind Turner, but also Walter Nolan. So they all kind of played on the 5 technique. Now, sometimes Nolan and sometimes Turner would rotate to the defensive tackle spot beside McKinney, but basically Stewart was like the last, Stewart was the last one that kind of rotated in there. So Turner has a lot of experience playing both inside and outside, 5 technique, 3 technique. He's got a body that's maybe better for the outside as a 3-4 defensive end, but he's shown a lot of potential as a 3 technique this year. A lot of length for the position. His productivity numbers and his PFF grades were not very good, but he's a very athletic, very long, and I think he was just kind of adjusting to a new coaching staff at Texas A&M, a new scheme, a new position. I think his best football is ahead of him. I'm just excited about the player, but I realize I may be a little bit higher on him than some of the other guys.
Okay. I'm with you, Durst, on Shamar Turner. I had Shamar Turner at one point during this season as my defensive tackle number 2. He slid down the board a little bit for me. Part of it is obviously, that foot injury that he suffered that he's going to have to heal from, and what's he going to look like coming back from that. And I think both of the Texas A&M defensive linemen, both Nick Scarton and Shamar Turner, put on some bad weight, trying to kind of be more flexible and playing inside and outside. And I think Shamar Turner, when he put on that bad weight, he lost a lot of his explosiveness that he had previously. And I'd like to see him, even though he's listed as defensive tackle, I'd like to see him slim down and slip back out to the edge. But if he stays at defensive tackle, I think he can still be very good. It's just he's kind of fallen back a bit by the wayside just because he's lost a lot of that explosiveness, but he's still a great talent. Don't get me wrong. It's just I expected more, and I didn't see it, which was disappointing.
Yep. And then how about Joshua Farmer and Howard Cross?
Yeah, so Farmer, so at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of talk that FSU might have 4 first-round picks on the defensive line. And, of course, that fell apart about as quickly as the Georgia Tech game, first opening game of the season. But I just kept thinking, okay, the sum of the parts isn't just the individuals are better than the sum of the parts. But I kept on watching that team, and the defensive line just kept getting taken to the woodshed by running backs and by running games, by the offensive line, Boston College, Georgia Tech. Everybody just seemed to be able to scheme against them. But I still think that Joshua Farmer's a good pass rusher. I think he's suspect against the run. I think he can, he can't handle duos. He wasn't able to stand up against, some of the bigger offensive linemen he went against. But I think he's got some pass rush potential there. Now, Howard Cross, I think a lot of what we said about Peoples, we could say about Howard Cross. He's kind of an older player, 6-year senior. He's very small for the size, and you either have to, you're either a first-round pick or you're a third-round pick when you're that size. You've either got the goods when it comes to athleticism and quickness to be able to overcome that, or you're going to be kind of usually a late 3rd-round pick. But he's got really good pass rush skills. He's got really good pass rush ability. very quick, a lot of swim moves and just nuance in terms of he's a 6-year senior, knew what he was doing. Now, last year was a better year for him than this year. This year, he battled through a lot of injuries, and people may have forgot about him because he wasn't in the college football playoff, I think, at all, if I remember right, because of injuries. But him and Riley Mills formed a dynamic duo for the last couple of years.
Okay. And Jacob, where would you have Tonka Hemingway as a interior pass rusher?
He's probably he's probably just outside the top 10 probably as an interior pass rusher. I really like him as a day 3 guy, though, just like kind of one of those guys that is a little bit under the radar because I think he does have pass rush upside. Just kind of it's kind of average stuff to me there, where I think he can be kind of a contributor on the back end of some things, but he's got good get off, but like I just don't love his counters. Like if you stifle his initial moves and what he's trying to do to get past you, he didn't really have a lot of counters in the bag. But I think there's enough pass rush upside to take a flyer on them day 3.
And Jacob, anybody else that you think that we haven't mentioned that should be mentioned as a interior pass rusher?
No, I think we've covered the pass rushers pretty good. I think so.
Yeah. So let's pause for a second for some station identification. Jacob, you want to let everybody know who you are and how they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me over on X at Roachism13. I used to have a Blue Sky, but I forget that thing exists. So don't go follow that. You're not going to get anything. It's not going to happen. So don't go looking for it. The written works over at theobr.com. Mainly centered around the Cleveland Browns, but I do general draft stuff there as well. Top 50. I'm hoping my top 50 drops next week before the combine, I think. Is what we're looking at. I did finish it today. Bill has seen it. Bill's the only person who's seen it. He's the only person that's seen my top 50. That isn't me. So that's coming out soon. But you can also find the podcast over youtube.com/The Orange and Brown Report.
Cool. Bill, you want to let everybody know who you are and how they can find you?
Yeah, so you can find all of my content over on X at Sparks Scouting, as well as I'm a writer and analyst for the Right Way Sports Network, TWSN.net. Just wrapped up my pre-combine positional rankings tonight. We'll be dropping my top 100 pre-combine overall rankings at some point prior to the combine. Jacob has seen my top 100, but going to have that wrapped up hopefully this weekend. But yeah, and then of course you can catch me here Wednesday nights with Jim and Jacob here at the Draft Professor as well.
Cool. And Durst, you want to let everybody know who you are, how they can find you?
Yes, I am on X at Durst NFL Draft. I just dropped my top 50 about 2 days ago, I think, and I'm got a couple of threads going for certain position groups where I'll do a little bit on each player in my maybe say top 10 or so.
Cool. Nice. Well, you can follow the channel at NFL Draft Fanatic. It is the same channel on X, Twitter, and YouTube. And the channel has daily draft content. So if you want to learn more about these defensive tackles, go to the YouTube and you might see some detail there from our friend Owen in the chat because he was doing scouting reports on these defensive tackles starting in October. So if you want more than just like a 1 minute explanation of why the player is where they are on the big board, you can listen to Owen and Newt go back and forth on these defensive tackles like 3 or 4 minutes at a time. And I will definitely say I was highly entertained. I'm just going to say, Owen, you and Newt highly entertained me. I mean, every podcaster highly entertains me, but I thoroughly enjoyed listening to them and working with them to do all the scouting reports. So, Brandon, I believe this podcast is for you. So, Brandon is a Houston Texans fan, right, Brandon? And I believe Brandon is only on YouTube. Like, we won't find him on X. You only find Brandon when we're on podcasts. So, Brandon, however you found us, thank you. This is the defensive tackle. We just did the pass rusher. This is the run-stuffing defensive tackles. So, John, your best run-stuffing defensive tackle is Mason Graham. You want to? I mean, I'm going to say, do you want to explain that? But it really doesn't need an explanation. But the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, certainly stout at the point of attack, leverage. Sometimes drop down on a knee there and just almost like bench press two people at the same time. You ever seen that YouTube guy? He's got a bench press. He's bench pressing 4 different girls. They're holding on to. They're all like kind of hanging on to a bar, and he'll bench press 4 different girls at the same time. I feel like that's Mason Graham.
Yeah.
Okay, and Bill, your number one run-stopping defensive lineman is Alfred Collins, and I think Owen's going to like that because Owen likes Alfred Collins too. But tell us why you have Alfred Collins that high.
Yeah, so Alfred Collins is my best run-stuffing defensive tackle, but he's also my defensive tackle number 2 overall on my big board, as well as a first-round grade for me, and is also my 18th overall prospect. I am sky high on Alfred Collins in every which way possible because this is a guy. Number one, when you're a run stuffing defensive tackle, you've got to be able to tackle. You can't miss tackles. You can't whiff on tackles. You can't arm tackle. His PFF percentage at 3% of missed tackles is otherworldly, but this is a guy, well-proportioned frame, has long arms to be able to push through an offensive lineman, but then also be able to still grab onto the runner with one hand while the other hand's engaged. If you go back and look at the SEC championship game against Georgia, against Texas, you'll see there were times he was doubled up and still was able to get a hand on the runner. He's at his best when he's able to just stack blocks and just be able to stack people up. He's like IHOP, right? If he can just stack and stack and stack, this is a guy that's going to go sky's the limit. For me, reminds me a lot of Jonathan Allen when he was coming out of Alabama, ended up at the Washington Redacteds at the time. That same style of defensive tackle. He does need work in his pass rush, which is why he was lower on that end. But if you're wanting a pure run-stuffing defensive tackle for someone to just be in the middle and stop the running back cold in his tracks, it's Alfred Collins. But for me, it's not close between Collins and Graham.
Yep. And Jacob, who would be the next best run-stuffing defensive tackle that is not named Alfred Collins or Mason Graham to you?
Tyleik Williams, man. Tyleik Williams is my defensive tackle number 3 overall, right behind Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. And I think I'm I'm probably a bit higher on him overall, I think, because I have him somewhere well within my top 50 as well. But Tyleik Williams to me is a guy that his get off and engagement is up there with the best of them. Like he's going to get out, get his hands on you and start driving you into the backfield really quickly. Like Durst, you talked about it with Mason Graham and in the power profile. Tyleik Williams will do the same thing. He will bench press you into the running back. Like he has no problem doing that. He has no problem calling for double teams. And it's just the way that I think he anchors that I love so much. Like he, in the playoffs for Ohio State, he was a big part of that national championship team. Like he played well, but he had a little bit of an inconsistent season, at least at the first half of the season or so. But when he got into the playoffs, there were moments where he was the best player on that defense. And that's saying something because Caleb Downs is on that defense. And Jack Sawyer had a heck of a playoff run and JTT had a playoff run. But like Tyleik Williams, I think he's flashed the upside as a pass rusher, but you're drafting him because you need a dude that's stout in the middle of that defensive line that's going to shut things down. And I think that Tyleik Williams is that guy.
Okay. And this is why I love doing podcasts like this, because after we get through the top 3, the lists are almost completely different.
Yeah, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Right.
So
floodgates are opened.
So I think this is going to get to be pretty good. So Durst, your number 4 run stuffer is Kenneth Grant. What do you like about Kenneth Grant against the run?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that he may be my 15th overall prospect. A young guy, true junior. Caught behind a lot of people the last couple of years, Mozzie Smith and Chris Jenkins, but also his own teammate Mason Graham, and so he's very athletic for his size. Me and Bill both did the Dontore Poe, comp. So extremely athletic. In fact, he's probably more what I thought Dante Walker was going to be. So he ended up he's got a little trouble with the get off, because he's 340 pounds, but he's very athletic for his size. He stands up a little too quickly sometimes and doesn't always win the leverage battle because of that, but still very athletic for his size. So the pass rush potential is there, but I have more confidence in the run game. I think that's more likely to translate to the NFL. We'll see if he gets there as a pass rusher, but I think we've got a already NFL ready run defender that just needs more consistency as he ages and matures as a player.
Okay, and Bill, your next run stuffing defensive tackle is Darius Alexander. So what do you like about him against the run?
Yes, like I talked about with him in the pass rush game, Darius Alexander is a problem in the run game as well. This is a guy that's going to be able to stack and shed blockers with ease, push offensive linemen. He can push them back in the pocket, not only in the pass rush, but in the run game as well. But he can also disengage. His disengagement ability is probably some of the best in this class because he knows when I call him the Kenny Rogers of defensive tackles. He knows when to hold them and he knows when to fold them and cut his losses and call it a day. And I think that's going to lend himself well as a pass rusher and as a run defender as well.
Okay. And Jacob, the next best run stuffer that hasn't been mentioned yet.
I'm going to jump on it before he can do it, but CJ West needs to get a little bit more love than what he is getting. With CJ West, it's definitely about the run defense, right? And I think where did I have him overall in my defensive tackles? Yeah, I have him kind of a little bit further down there just because I tend to like the pass rushers. But man, if you want a dude that's just a big nasty mauler, CJ West from Indiana is a guy that's just not getting enough love. I think Bill, you're still much higher on him than I am. I do think that, but I did want to say that because I knew Bill was going to try to jump on it because it's net.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I see that. And I saw that opportunity and I pounced. It's what I do. But Owen's talking about it with, no, I'm sorry. It was Brandon was talking about D'Amico Ryans needing a good run stuffing DT. If he doesn't want to go defensive tackle early and get that, CJ West a little bit later in the class, if that is what you need, it's a very role specific player to me. But yeah, man, he's got the goods as a run defender.
Okay, and Durst, the next one on your list is Jamari Caldwell from Oregon.
Yeah, so real quick, I have not gotten to West yet, and then Alexander. I mean, I was definitely behind. I pretty much had not gotten to Alexander until the Senior Bowl. I still have some catching up to do on him. And the way I did this exercise, I try not to repeat too many people. So so a lot of the people that are now on this list, I put on the other lists, and so I try not to repeat too much, except for the obvious ones like Mason Graham. But let's see. So we were asking about which one did Mark call? Oh, yeah. So he may get a little. We got a lot of terrific twosomes. We've got the Michigan guys and the Oregon guys, and so I think he's a little bit overlooked. But he's also 340 pounds, great leverage, a little bit on the shorter side. But he. He's really good against the run. He probably doesn't have as much pass rush potential, so I think he's probably more of a day 3 pick because of that. But extremely stout, can take one arm and hold up against two blockers, take on the double teams, and has got enough agility at 340 pounds to occasionally penetrate into the backfield and make a tackle that way. But really just like him as being more of a space eating run stuffer.
Cool. And Bill, the next one on your list would be Thor Griffith.
Yeah, so probably the best name of any defensive tackle in this entire class, and Thor Griffith. When you've got that name, you've got to be able to stuff the run. This is a guy who has been known to bench press 225 45 times. as well as he's got an exceptional 1.65 10-yard split during his time between Portsmouth and Louisville. But he's violent at the point of attack. Not only is he strong, he's violent. He's what I like to call country strong, right? He's a guy that just wants to hurt people and make them feel every single hit. And he can push people back, but he also knows when to pull it back and say, you know what, runner's coming to the gap. I'm going to shoot the gap. And the running back is going to feel every part of it. There's a reason that running back careers are shortened in the NFL, and it's because of guys like Thor Griffith who are standing in the hole waiting for an Oklahoma drill to happen.
Okay, and Jacob, the next best run-stuffing defensive tackle that hasn't been mentioned yet.
Now I'm going to steal again. Just Jordan Phillips from Maryland. This time I'm sniping on the other side of the board. That's right. There I go again. I really like Jordan Phillips a lot. He was like number one on my list of Shrine Bowl standouts. I thought he had a heck of a week down there at the Shrine Bowl. And I really liked this. I took a screenshot of his part of his player profile from Kyle Krabs over at the 33rd team. And the first thing that he wrote about him is Phillips is a powerful ball of muscle with an ideal frame to play in the interior at the NFL level. And I think that is the best way to describe who Jordan Phillips is. Like, the pass rush upside is very modest. Like, to be honest with you, I don't really see it necessarily as a pass rusher there. So another role specific guy, but like really powerful, just really smart when it comes to playing the run, understands how to just, I think that he's like the king of the does the dirty work that doesn't show up in stats. Because like he's going to eat blocks, he's going to eat space, he's going to force running backs to hesitate, to bounce out, and he may not get the numbers because it might be his teammates, but he may keep his teammates clean so his linebacker can come in there and clean it up. But I really like Jordan Phillips from Maryland.
Yeah. Okay, and then Durst, the next one on your list is Nazir Stackhouse from Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around for a long time in that Georgia line, and doesn't get the same recognition as the the edge rushers and some of the other players on that team. He was only the 32nd defensive tackle in his high school class, and so I think that's probably about where he is now. Probably more like 25, but I don't think he's breaking top 20 on an overall list. But on this particular list of defensive tackles who have some run stuffing ability, I think that's exactly what he does. He's stout at the point of attack. He's got, like I said, country strong, as I think what was brought up a few minutes ago, and not much. I think he's got 3 career sacks, so he's just not much of a pass rush plan or any effectivity there. But really strong at the point of attack, but probably more of a late round 5, round 7, even in a deep class like this.
Okay, and Bill, Cameron Jackson from Florida.
Yeah, so before I touch on Cam Jackson, I'll double back on Jacob talking about Jordan Phillips. My comp for Jordan Phillips is a bit of a throwback for some Jags fans, but remember Marcus Stroud and what he used to do for the interior of that Jacksonville defense? Jordan Phillips is going to do the same thing in 2025. But Cam Jackson, this is a big guy, 6'6", 340 pounds, but he's got a really quick first step to be able to set that interior in that run game. High motor, high effort. He's like your neighbor's Lamborghini. It's got a motor that can go all day long and it'll never stop. And that's what you get from Cam Jackson. But, he doesn't really have that sack production that you'd see from a defensive tackle. So he's a better run stuffer because of that. But, I mean, if he were only ever a run stuffing defensive tackle, he'd be a pretty darn good one at the next level just because of that size. It's the Deone Walker conversation that we have. How big is too big? And I think Cam Jackson shows that, yeah, you can be 6'6", 340 pounds, but still be able to win with a quick first step and good leverage and good pad level.
Okay. And Jacob, the next player that hasn't been mentioned.
Another national champion. Oh my goodness. How are we doing this? Talk about Ty Hamilton from Ohio State, man. Like, I was reading a scouting report on him like last week. I think it was Last Word on Sports was where I was reading from. And they said it best. They were like, his strength and weaknesses profile is cut and dry because it's very glaring what his issues are, and it's very obvious what he's good at. He is a big immovable object in the middle. That is what Ty Hamilton is. I'm not drafting Ty Hamilton thinking he's going to do much of anything against the pass. But if it's like 3rd and 2, especially late in the game, I feel great about sticking him right there at the nose and just being like, hey, dude, don't let them push you at all. And he'll, oh, okay, yeah, like I can do that. That's the thing that I can do. And I think he plays with good leverage, gets underneath his good pad level, and he just anchors. It's like, you remember when like you were a kid and like your cousin or your sibling or whatever, pain in the ass, I don't know, whatever, was trying to move you off the couch or whatever, and you would just dead weight him. That's Ty Hamilton against the run. He's not going anywhere. He's just like, I am here, and you're not doing nothing. And so, like, just like with CJ West, very, very role specific. I don't know what he gives you as a pass rusher, but like, there is a role for someone that can just stuff the middle of the line against the run, and Ty Hamilton's that guy.
Okay, and then I'm definitely waiting for Nash Hutmacher.
Yeah,
And so when, just inside joke, when Durst shared the screenshots in our internal text ahead of the podcast, there were a couple of people that saw it and said, okay, I got to go back and watch him. So apparently a few draft professors hadn't watched him, but what do you like about Nash, Durst?
Well, he's probably a fringe draftable guy. In fact, my comp for him was Bo Allen, Wisconsin's 7th-round player that I think outperformed his draft position. But what I wrote down is a stoutly built, wide body with good initial quickness and thrust at the snap, who projects as a 2-down run stuffer in the NFL. He's got good core strength and leverage. A little background story. He was the #1 high school recruit in the nation for wrestling. He had a record of 166-0. And then after several years in college of not wrestling, he decided this, I think it's 2023, to go ahead and get back into the wrestling ring, and made it to the Nationals. But to do so, he had to lose about 40 pounds. He had been playing around like 330 or so, and got down to 285 for wrestling. And then it took him pretty much from the spring up until through fall camp to get up to his playing weight, which is more at 320. I think he was at 320 at the Senior Bowl, 314 at the Senior Bowl. So he's got that wrestling background. He uses his leverage. He uses power and strength. He's one of those immovable objects, as we were just now talking about. He's not somebody who you want. He can't even really. I have him as a run defender, but anything outside the tackle box, he's not really getting to. He's just right up the middle kind of guy. So on 4th and goal, this is a guy you want in there.
Cool. And Bill, you've got a couple guys. JJ Pegs and Jay Toya.
Yeah, so JJ Peguia's defensive tackle from Ole Miss, and this guy is a big guy, 6'2", 315, and he's explosive, quickness off the snap, strong at the point of attack. He's got a change of direction ability. For a guy that weighs 315 pounds, he can get moving. He's one of the defensive tackles in this class that I call a bull in a china shop. He is going to get physical in a hurry. He's going to get moving in a hurry. And he's also a two-way player. If we talk about Travis Hunter playing two ways, so does JJ. JJ plays defensive tackle and he plays fullback. I believe he's got 7 rushing touchdowns for Ole Miss this season. So this is a guy, you want a two-way player and you don't want to spend some capital on Travis Hunter. JJ is sitting right there from Ole Miss, but definitely just a big bull in a china shop style of guy. And then Jay Toya from UCLA, he's one of the few guys that hasn't been talked about enough. 6'3", 325. Again, a powerful bull rush maneuver. This is a guy that's going to push offensive linemen backwards. He's going to throw them straight in reverse. Uses his leverage well for 6'3", 325. He gets underneath folks, gets them up in the air, and gets them moving backwards. He also has a really good football IQ. Most defensive tackles, especially coming in the league, struggle to locate the ball, especially in run defense. Jay Toia does not have that problem. Toia can locate the ball with ease, and this is a versatile defensive tackle. You could line him at anywhere from 0 tech to 5 tech across the defensive line and not experience any sort of drop off. Yes, he's limited pass rusher overall at UCLA, but if you want a pure run stuffing defensive tackle that you can put anywhere in your defensive line and say see ball, get ball, stop ball, Jay Toia is that guy, the former UCLA Bruin.
Okay. Jacob, any run stuffing defensive tackles that we haven't mentioned?
That's always the great point. Honestly, no, I think I'm kind of, I think that's kind of, Nazir Stackhouse I have on my list too, just to be clear that he's one of my favorite, like day 3 guys that you get there. And it's just, he does one thing really well, man. But he does it really well, and that kind of thing. So I do think he gets kind of lost in the sauce because there's a million defensive linemen that everybody else is talking about at Georgia, and it's not him. But he's probably the best run defender of all of them, if we're being completely honest.
Oh, and I'm fascinated just looking at the 2 lists that are up here, and I'm trying to quickly count in my head, but I think out of the 20 players listed, I think there's like 16 unique players.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Collins, Graham, Tyleek, and Stackhouse are the only 4 players that are on both lists. So there's 6 unique players on the left, 6 unique players on the right.
Yeah.
Which goes to show the day 3 depth of this defensive tackle class. Right? Because I think most of those 12 guys are day 3 guys.
Yeah. And there's
right?
one more. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's one more name that I didn't get on this list. He's probably 10B, but I'll mention him here. It is Zeke Biggers from Georgia Tech, 6'5", 320 pounds, 35-inch arms, 85 and an 1/8-inch wingspan at 6'5", 320 pounds. That is a guy he is an immovable force, like we talked about. He's a human mountain. You're not going to get much in the way of pass rush from him, but he is a definite run stuffer. And like you were talking about, Jim, a lot of these run stuffing defensive tackles, they're going to go on day 3 because, most people who want an interior defensive lineman, they want pass rush from that defensive line, and run stuffing isn't as sexy as a sack. But sometimes having that run stuffing ability is better, because if you have a team that can run the ball against you, for example, if Buffalo's able to just run the ball with Josh Allen 40 times a game and can't be stopped, you don't need to worry about sacks.
Fourth quarter, it's the fourth quarter 1-score game, and they're trying to run out the clock, and you're trying to get the ball back, then you're going to wish you had one of these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a saying in Buffalo that says you have to earn the right to rush the passer. I think it was Von Miller that said that. You have to earn the right to rush the passer, meaning that you need the guys on 1st and 2nd down who are going to give you the right to tee off on 3rd down. So I definitely see where, from a team building standpoint, there's going to be a lot of guys that are sitting on this list right here. This is a really good list, in my opinion. Like, there's more deviation on this list than there was on the pass rushing one that we did previously. Let me ask you guys a question. I'm just going to go through a couple of the guys here. Jacob, Jamari Caldwell, day 2 or day 3?
3.
Bill Caldwell, day 2, day 3?
It's going to be a day 3 for me.
And that's close, isn't it?
Yeah, it's close. He's in the top 175, and it's going to kind of depend on how many of the pass rushers go ahead of him. There's a run on pass rushers, like I think there will be on day 2. He's going to be a day 3 guy.
I've been pretty late in day 3, but yeah, I mean a lot of these guys I have on my run stuffing list are like late day 3 guys.
And okay, so there's CJ West, day 2, day 3?
He's one of the ones I haven't gotten to yet. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, that's right. You said that. And then Bill, you said that you have him day 3.
Yeah, he'd be an early day 3, round 4, like early round 5.
Okay. And Jacob, CJ West.
Yeah. I have a mid 5.
Okay. Darius Alexander, is he closer to 32 or closer to 75?
32.
75 right now. And I love Darius Alexander. Don't get me wrong and don't get it twisted. I sung his praises, but there are a lot of folks ahead of him. The level of competition is still a question mark, even though he showed it at the Senior Bowl. It's still something that's glaring on tape when you have teams that did it for multiple games in a season. It's still a question mark for him. But when I have guys who are able to do one or the other better, Darius Alexander does them both well. But if I have a really good pass rushing defensive tackle like a Derek Harmon, or I have a really good run stuffing defensive tackle like Alfred Collins, they're going to go higher because I can specialize one of those guys. I place a premier on guys who specialize in one thing on my board. I don't want a jack of all trades. I want a master of one.
Got it. And Darius Alexander, is he closer to 32 or 75 in your board?
So I have him as a back end of round 2. So I guess that's a little closer to 75 mathematically, but
okay. And then Alfred Collins. So Durst, Alfred Collins, is he closer to 20 or is he closer to 64?
he's just outside my top 50. So I mean, I guess
Okay. That's late.
Just a little closer to 64, but
yeah. And Bill, you said that you have Collins in your top 20.
Yep, he's in my top 20 first round grade.
And Jacob, where do you have Collins?
I have him as defensive tackle 8.
Which is about where?
I have
Is that top 50?
No, I have 6 defensive tackles in the top 50.
Okay,
So,
and he's sitting just outside the top 50.
Yeah, so he's probably sitting
to me.
He's probably in the 60s or 70s, early 70s at worst, probably.
So it was interesting. I believe we covered it. We did a 2-round mock on Monday. So there were 3 of us that did it. And I took Collins in round 1. And Dom said, I haven't seen Collins go that high. He wasn't surprised, but he hadn't seen Collins go that high in a mock before. And I know in a few of our mocks, I know Bill's taken him high. I know I have. And I know that Owen likes him. Like if Collins is there when Buffalo is on the clock in round 1, I would be hard pressed that he is not the pick. Buffalo has scouted Texas a lot. We need a defensive tackle. And I think the only discussion is it Collins or Golden if both of them are there. But my money is on we're drafting somebody from Texas. I'm just saying that's where my smart money is.
I definitely think that he's one of the ones that if he goes a lot earlier than what I project him, I would not be shocked. He's definitely one of those guys where it's like, oh, he ends up going in the first round. I would be like, I see the vision, like I may not have him there at this current point in time, but it's like the way I feel about the Browns drafting Shedeur Sanders at 2. I wouldn't do it because I just like other guys more. Bill would do it, but
and I would run with it.
If they make that selection, I'm like, okay, I see why you made it. I can see that. I'm not exactly 100% there with you overall, but I see the vision. I see how that comes together. I see the plan, that sort of thing. So yeah, Alfred Collins, he's one that he's a little hard to nail down in terms of draft boards. I see him all over the place.
Yeah, I know he's getting a lot of buzz. Obviously, us over at TWSN, we took him in round 1 of our mock. We took him 30th to Buffalo. Kyle Krabs had him in the first round in his last mock in January, I believe. Even, Walter Football had him in the first round. So I think after the conversation at the end of the season at Texas, I would have loved to see him at the Senior Bowl. Disappointed that it didn't happen, but I think when we get to the combine and he throws measurements up there and people see those long arms, it's going to start to ramp up even more. He's one of those guys that I'm intrigued to see at the combine when I've got boots on the ground next week, because I want to see what those arms measure out at.
He's consensus. So on the consensus big board, he's 57. So he's definitely, you can tell.
I think those consensus big boards lag.
Well, that and it shows you that his rankings can be all over the place, because the average of it is putting him right there at the 57 mark. And
and that's what I mean by lagging. Like, one of the things that I am thoroughly enjoying about the Draft Professor is that while our voice may not be the loudest, I think we're proving that we can see things before a lot in the media are publishing them. I'm noticing that whether it's Jack Besh, whether it's Alfred Collins, whether it's like Xavier Watts. I know Bill has really liked Xavier Watts for a while, and I'm seeing that like now, like people are saying, well, how does Watts drop that far? He should be taken higher. And some people even are seeing Starks fall to like Kansas City in round 1 with Watts being taken ahead of it, kind of thing.
And I think we had a conversation here about Nick Emanwari as well very early on, and now like people are throwing him in the first.
Yeah, there was a Vikings fan in a 32 GM mock that it was taking Emanwari on a Draft Professor mock.
Yeah.
And then like within a week I started hearing Emanwari going in round 1.
Yeah. And I mean, CBS Sports today, one of their writers released a mock that had Emanwari at 5th overall to Jacksonville.
Jeez.
So I'm not that high on Emanwari, but I've consistently said he's going to be somewhere between 11th and 18th. And I would not be shocked in the slightest if they took Emanwari over Starks or Watts. And the comment on run stuffing stud Cam Horsley from Boston College, he was 12th on my list. So Stackhouse was 10th, 11th was Zeke Biggers, Cam Horsley was 12th. Just because when you watch him at Boston College, you see an absolute stonewall in 6'4", shade over 305. This is a guy that, very good defensively. I argue that his game against Syracuse was probably some of the best tape that he's put out, but I just didn't see it consistently enough. There were times he looked like a brick stone wall, and then there were times he looked like a subway turnstile. And I'd want to see that consistency a little bit more from him, but he would be on my list if we went 15 deep. He'd be 12th for me.
Yep. So, hey, Ryan, thank you for stopping by. It is always good to see you. So thank you. So this is the list of the run stuffing defensive tackles. And this was the list of the pass rushing defensive tackles. So if you want to see more and you have like an extra 70 minutes, you should just listen to the whole podcast. I'm just saying. So today was actually a really good day because these were actually 2 really unique podcasts. Like we did linebackers earlier. We just did run stuffing versus pass rushing defensive tackles. And I like that we have people that can do diverse subjects. This is not just scouting reports. It's not just a big board. It's something in the middle. And like the fact that the 3 of you guys could put this together, this is a testament to the 3 of you. So thank you. It is recognized by me and appreciated by me. We see Ryan coming in. Hey, Ryan. We see Brandon coming in. Thank you, Brandon. And we saw Owen coming in. So thank you, Owen. Right? So if other podcasters are watching our content, I'm confident that we're doing a couple of things correctly. So great job,
100%.
all 3 of you. So thank you. But we are gonna close this down on behalf of Jacob, Bill, Durst, myself, the 37 podcasters at the Draft Professor, and to the fans, because we can't do this without you. So thank you very much. We will see you on a podcast again tomorrow. And you'll see Durst again doing some tight end stuff. So we will see you then, and have a good night, everybody.
See ya.